Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley. This is another historic church. This is in Derbyshire, not all that far from Stoke-on-Trent, just up the A50 in fact. This is the Church of St George, Ticknall. It's a mid-19th century church, 1842. It was built to replace the old church of St Thomas Becket, which stood to the south of the present building, and in fact its ruins can still be seen there, which was blown up with gunpowder in 1841, which seems to be a little excessive. It was apparently in a poor state, and they said, well, it'd be cheaper to demolish it and build a new church. And so they did, but it does seem to be over the top to blow it up with dynamite. The church was funded, the new church was funded by the Harpur-Crewe family of Calke Abbey. Country house, now owned by the National Trust, still exists. And although there is a church at Calke, it functions very much as the chapel for the country house, with this being the big church, and in fact at the end of the south aisle, as we can see here, they had their family pew in what is now the Lady Chapel, which was created in 1937 as the family were downsizing, and interwar period they very much needed to reduce expenditure, and also things like family pews and keeping this sort of grand style, which they still had to do to some extent, was getting more and more difficult. We'll have a look around the church here now and see what we can see. There are a few medieval relics as well as, of course, the Harpur-Crewe memorials and such like. As usual then, we start at the west end, looking east. The relatively shallow chancel is of course typical for the 1840s. The seating has all been renewed, but there would originally have been a high pulpit and reading desk. I don't know whether it was a three-decker or not. The font here is of course Victorian. You can just see there is the whole of the font. We have here this is Henry Francis Harpur-Crewe, High Sheriff of Derbyshire in 1991. He was the gentleman who gave the house at Calke to the National Trust, and then below is Sir George Harpur-Crewe, Baronet, died in 1843, and he is the man who's responsible for the building of the present church. We have the Royal Arms, which were originally in the front of a gallery, but the gallery was removed, and below, of course, portrait of the King. Now, up here, so above this door here, you can just see the outline of the gallery door. That's the top, and then we can pan down again, and there is the bottom. It's a fairly typical church interior. Relatively similar, certainly in layout, to the medieval church, as far as I can tell, in that you've got a central nave and you've got your two aisles. Rather nice roof structure. Now, we go into the north aisle, and you can see there is the war memorial. The window there is a war memorial. There's a memorial there to Charles Hill and his wife Elizabeth. She was daughter and niece and co-heir, as daughter of William and niece and co-heir of the late John Sherratt of Burton-on-Trent. So we move into the aisle. You can see there we have the pulpit, and of course a whacking red organ at the end, which is rather nice. And the Harpur-Crewe pew would have been there where the Lady Chapel is now, at the east end of the south aisle, where they could keep an eye on everybody, and also where they have the best, well, literally they did have the best seat in the house. It was a different age. There is the Second World War memorial, and the First World War memorial is this window here with these angels who are looking suitably sad at the deaths of the men recorded here. We have here the, well, you can just see him, can't you? Can't see all of him, but there he is, a knight in full armour. This is the cheap version of the effigy. Rather than having a full effigy, you just have this incised slab. It's a common thing around here. The pulpit, interesting in that the balusters appeared to be earlier and probably reused from an older communion rail or something else. And there we have eagle lectern as we move across into the here we go, and there's the chancel, big east window, organ. I don't know who made this one. It's no visible sign. I forgot to look it up before coming out. The Mothers Union banner, which here has rather than a Mothers Union related image, we have St George killing the dragon, so obviously to do with the church here being dedicated to St George for England. The chancel is, as said, relatively shallow, as they were in that period, and we have here the four evangelists in the east window. Memorial here to Rachel, the beloved wife, first beloved wife of Gilbert Ward, attorney of the King's Bench, and she was daughter of William Ireton, Knight. My Latin is not good, but I can just about. She was a beloved wife, and she died on her 20th birthday in 1636. The panel here, just get it so it's not behind. So there, here we go. This panel comes from the gates to the formal gardens at Calke Abbey. The formal gardens no longer exist, with the difficulty in getting staff. They very much let the formal gardens lapse. And so we proceed past the eagle lectern, which of course is thoroughly alarmed, not in that way, and this is dated 1888. And here is the Lady Chapel, formerly the Harpur-Crewe pew, and we have memorials here to Hugo Harpur-Crewe, second son of the late Sir John Harpur-Crewe, Baronet, born Calke Abbey, 1858, died at Stanley Ears Hants, October 28th, 1905. East window here, litany-based window, by thy Holy Nativity, by thy cross and passion, by thy glorious resurrection, by thy wondrous ascension, by the coming of the Holy Ghost, good Lord, deliver us. And then various Harpur-Crewe memorials here. We got Richard Harpur-Crewe, died in 1921, and Henry Francis Harpur-Crewe, died in 1991, because he's the man who gives Cork the National Trust. And this chapel is dedicated in 1837 in memory of Isabel Lady Crewe. And we have here the feeding the 5,000. There's the lad bringing his packed lunch. And then we look west. Now here we have the other memorial from the medieval church, and this is interesting because it's not a memorial to a knight, but to a layman, probably a lawyer. He's got his feet on a dog, and he is wearing a calf-length robe. He's holding a heart, which indicates probably a heart burial rather than a full burial. His body's buried somewhere else. These things are interesting because, of course, this is how we get ideas of what men wore in the Middle Ages, because knights didn't always wear armour, as we know, but always depicted in it in the memorials. And we have here, this is the suffer the little children to come unto me and forbid them not. And this is 1884 memorial window to the Reverend Richardson Cox, books. Notice he describes Vicar of Ticknall, which is the full name, and obviously Ticknall is an abbreviation. Here we have, just about see, unfortunately reflection here, but that's the old church. That's the building that preceded this one. So there we go, and just slow pan around. If you watch this, of course, that's double speed. It won't be a slow pan around, but that's your choice, not mine. And there's the Lady Chapel, and again, before 1937, that would have been a big high-sided family pew where the Harpur-Crewe family sat. So that's the interior. Let's go outside now. We won't look around the north side because there's a lot of stinging nettles around there. It's not very interesting, but south side, of course, that's where the ruins are. So let's go outside. And so here we are outside at Ticknall. It's just so raining. You can see behind me the Victorian church with its tower and nave. And as we saw from the old drawing inside, the medieval church was similar in shape, but not in size or in grandeur. So we'll have a look around. I say it's raining a bit at the moment, but we'll have a look on the outside, and of course we will look at the medieval church, or what's left of it, because it was blown up. So we start, in fact, here. This is the old preaching cross. I suspect it was actually originally in the centre of the village, but it may always have been here. Now, around here, we can see that is the east end of the medieval church, as far as I can tell. And this is all that's left of the tower. So that's what happens if you blow a church up with gunpowder. You end up with just a few bits left. And there is the Victorian building. Now we'll proceed towards it. This is early, so it's still very much this box, would have been box pews and 3-deck, and it is starting to come down a bit now. However, I said I'd do the church, and we'll do the church. So we proceed back towards St George's, and I won't go too close. It's not that much to see too close. See the clock there? The actual clock mechanism is older than the church, because the clock mechanism is 200 years old. And of course the church building is not. So that mechanism would have been in the old church, or somewhere else anyway. And certainly there was a clock in the old church before it was demolished violently. So here we are. You can see again this relatively shallow chancel. And it's very much of the period, very much sort of thing you find around here with 80, and there, up here, there's the old church. And so most of the graveyard now is north of the old church, with the old church, in fact the path to the front door, the new church goes through the site of the old, past that, just that corner of the tower that's left, and then the east wall. And you can bemoan the demolition of the old, and to some extent one does, but again, if someone says, well, I'll pay for a new one, but the old one's got to be blown up, then that's very much that. So that then is Ticknall. I'll just go inside the old church, why not? There's a little bit of plaster adhering still inside the tower. And here we are as the east window, this intersecting tracery. And again you can see some of the plaster still there. So there we are, Ticknall. Ticknall. And so there we have it, not quite 2 for 1, but here's what's left of the largest surviving part, basically, of St Thomas Becket, and of course over there you've seen St George. So thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you until next time.